Hey everyone, welcome to the Curse of Oak Island and Beyond live stream and J-Free 906, and we thank you guys for coming tonight. As you know, we have Linda Simpson riding
Hey, everybody
in the co-host chair tonight. Thank you, Linda, so very much for filling in once again. Appreciate it so very much. You do an awesome job, and I really do appreciate your coming on and being here with me, kind of keeping me straight and
right.
and not talking too much.
Like,
But folks, we really appreciate your being here tonight. We are going to be recapping Beyond Oak Island episode number 4 of season 3, Aury's Treasure. And we're going to kind of walk through the entire episode. And once again, thanks to all the hard work of Jan Anderson, who's working out hard on the chat here tonight. She was able to secure some guests for us tonight. And so we are going to be talking with Captain Joe Zsiga and Mr. Mike
Gattuso.
Gattuso is going to be joining us tonight, and they're going to help us get a little bit more insight into that episode and Aury's Treasure and how they went about finding where it is, or all that kind of stuff. And so we're going to get a great insight into this, and I love having these guests on because that's exactly as I've said before, we only get to see a portion of what they actually do on the TV show out of 40 minutes. We only get about 40 minutes worth, and we know that there's a lot more detail to it. So they're going to share that with us tonight. So we'll be going there. Before we get started, I did want to say, if you're out there on the YouTube side, please click on that subscribe button for us. And if you like the content of our show tonight, please give us a thumbs up. It really helps out a lot in that respect. And if you want to know when we have videos coming out, click that notification bell and you get notified right away when we go live. Also, if you like to help support the show, we do have our Patreon. It is patreon.com, and then I think it's /JFree906, or just search for JFree906 out there. And we do appreciate our patrons so very, very much. It really helps out a lot. So we appreciate each and every one of you who contributes. I think that's about it for all the housekeeping. Did I miss anything? Or no, I don't think so. All right, so we're gonna get rolling here, and we're gonna be right back with our special guests right after this.
This is Robert Clotworthy, the narrator of The Curse of Oak Island, and I have a question for you. Could it be that you are listening to The Curse of Oak Island and Beyond live stream?
This is a top pocket find, mate, for sure.
All right, we are back. Hey, thanks so much for our very special guest, Captain Joe Zsiga and Mr. Mike Gattuso. So thank you, gentlemen, for both coming on tonight.
Hi, everybody.
So, as I was saying, Ari's Treasure. This is an episode, we've been getting into these episodes lately where we are either searching for some kind of pirate treasure on Beyond Oak Island, or they're looking for shipwrecks for treasure out off the coast or in Lake Michigan or somewhere like that. And I tell you what, this kind of stuff just fascinates me to no end. I am an amateur metal detector, but, to be able to do something like you two gentlemen get to do and go out and search for real treasure. What a fascinating thing you get to do. So there's so many people that are envious of what you get to do. I tell you, it's amazing. And that's part of why I love to have you on the show, because you get to give us more detail about what we saw. And as I mentioned earlier, before we got started, or as we were getting started, so much of the TV show, we only get to see a very small portion of the TV show, 40 minutes worth. And we know there's hours and hours and hours of camera footage and so much of the story that's not really told. And that's why it's so fun to have you guys on with us. I'd like to start off by getting a little bit of background. I'm sorry, go ahead, Linda. You look like you want to say something.
I do. We need to bring Dale Carney in.
Oh, thank you. Okay. You know what? I got to send him the link. I never sent him the link. Let me do that. I forgot all about Dale. Poor Dale. I'm like,
I know.
Dale Carney. I'm going to bring him. I'm going to send him the link right now. I completely forgot to do that. Dale Carney and his wife Sherry have a fundraiser going on for Christmas Daddies, which is a fundraiser for up in Nova Scotia for children or families that do not get their, get a Christmas, and for better words. And it's I'll let Dale
There he
tell us
is.
all about it. Dale, how you doing? Sorry about that, sir.
Yeah. I'm always forgotten.
Yeah. No. I didn't forget.
No, Linda didn't. I did. That's why I need her so much, right? So what's going on, Dale? Tell us what's happening.
Lots and lots. I got good news today, and it's been a good day. And yeah, I had to cut the fundraiser short by about 12 days because my store is getting busy, and I'm running out of time in the day now to do anything with this. So we're gonna have to. We're gonna do the draw. We're gonna end the fundraiser on the 3rd of November and do the draw live with you on the 10th of November. So you have 1 week to get your donations / entries in to win. So right now we're $1,750 Canadian away from $20,000.
Wow, that's awesome.
And this is all going to go towards Christmas Days, help children in need at Christmas.
Yep. Yeah, Christmas Daddies is a great thing. We did this last year with Dale. He did the fundraiser, and we helped in any way we could to participate. And I participated in it. I bought, my tickets and everything. For every $5, you get a chance at winning one of the prizes. Right? Is that how that turns out? Yep.
Yeah.
And I think also that they do what day is the actual telethon that happens? The
telethon is on December 3rd on CTV Atlantic 2 here in Nova Scotia. We're going to do a check flip, which is just we're going to flip the check, show how much we raised, and it's going to be televised to a couple 100,000 people.
Okay, fantastic.
And right now, I think we got 17 prizes, and most of them, they're all Oak Island related, and most of them are signed by cast members, people that wrote books and stuff like that. So it's a really big fundraiser this year.
Yeah, that's fantastic. What a great thing. And it's all donations. Everybody donates their time, even the folks that are on December 2nd for the telethon, that the station managers, the people that come on, everything is all donated and by, just giving their time and everything. Really cool. So you've got something you want to draw for?
We keep nothing from this, by the way.
Right.
So we keep zero. It all goes towards helping the kids. The only thing that comes out is the fees for the platforms and shipping, and that's it. That's the only things that come out. The website, if you want to donate, is christmasforthekids.ca. So anyway, I got a draw for something apparently.
Yes, you do.
We promised that if we get 25 people that donated $100 each, we would draw for a Nova Scotia tartan wool shawl that's made in Scotland. We sell these in our store for about $100 a piece.
I needed that today. It was really cold here.
So my wife donated it after she got her for the cause. She got good news today, by the way. She's getting the Queen's Jubilee Platinum Medal this year.
Really?
So there's only 5,000 given out in Nova Scotia, and it's for work during to help the province. So she's been nominated. And she's getting the award, so she's quite happy with that. Anyway, I had to get that plug in. But this is the box of donations or for the draw.
Entries for that. Yep.
I get nothing in my hand. I'm going to randomly pick one out. This one. So the winner is Michelle Gibson.
Michelle Gibson. Oh, all right.
So Michelle Gibson, I will email you shortly and get all your information, and we'll ship it out to you. And you just won a nice wool $100 shawl.
Nice. That's awesome.
Well, thank you very much for donating. And yeah, we're going to draw for the. I can't wait to draw for the prizes. I don't want the crib board. I love the crib board.
Yep. Oh, I know. There's quite a few in the picture frame, and everything's signed. You got so many things that are signed by Rick Lagina, and then you also have that hard hat.
Rick has donated about I don't know 10 of these prizes, and he's made them, and he's donated them, and he's signed them. He's put nice notes on them, so it's quite.
I need the hard hat from Vanessa. Just so you know.
Good luck. So because I'm going to win it, so good luck.
No.
So there you go. So christmasforthekids.ca. We need about 1,750 Canadian to hit 20,000. And we want to do a lot more, but we have a shorter period of time. So we have basically 1 week from today.
Wow.
Before it ends.
Okay.
So thank you for having me on. Enjoy your podcast.
All right.
And I'll be watching.
All right. Sounds good. Thank you, Dale.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.
All right, there we go. All right, so thank you for reminding me. Yeah, that's a great thing. It really is a great fundraiser, and it just helps so many families in Nova Scotia and the guys on the island obviously contributing to it as well, with Rick doing so much. So it's really a great thing, and we want to help in any way that we can. All right, so I think I can get started with it right now.
Sorry about that.
No. I'm glad you reminded me. I completely forgot. So let's get started with Mr. Mike. Sir, tell us a little bit about yourself and what got you interested in searching pirates and looking for pirate treasure.
Well, I've always loved history, and I've owned a repossession company for 20 years here in Florida. So I always kind of lived on the edge, like the excitement of trying to, obviously steal people's cars or possessions. But I didn't want to do it for the living. I'd rather do it for the dead, So anyhow, after I got out of the repossession business, I decided to use my skills of research and recovery towards treasure hunting. And I turned it into a hobby. And I've been doing it for about 7 years. And treasure hunting is all about research. Without the research, you can't prove the facts to the story, to the tale, and try to find the treasure along the way, But that's what led me to treasure hunting.
All right. Well, fantastic. And so that skill set you learned with the business, that must help a little bit, I guess. But that's interesting. And you always wonder about what draws somebody to that particular thing. And I know that sometimes that comes later in life. I know that I'm really getting interested of it. Looking into this entire stuff because of the guests and the shows that we've had on here. It's been fascinating to learn about these particular people and names that I had never heard of before, like Aury. I never heard of him before until it was presented by you guys on Beyond Oak Island. Captain Joe, tell us a little bit about Captain Joe and what got you started in all of this.
Well, I'm a retired air conditioning contractor. And unfortunately, when you're a tough guy like me and climb on too many roofs, you have 2 back surgeries. So I had plenty of time to study about treasure. I've always been fascinated about it. It's always been on my mind. But I had 7 months of doing nothing, and I decided, let's start this. That was a couple, 3 years ago. Well, then I discovered the Spanish well at Anclote Key. And then it went to Aury's Treasure. And then, for some weird reason, I was lucky enough to see this guy with great hair right here on Expedition Unknown.
Oh,
Little
okay.
did I
That's
know
pretty
when I emailed him he would call me. And he did. And that was almost 8 months ago.
wow.
We both love the same thing. And guess what? We're glued at the hip. And it all went from a Fox 13 interview last December 20th, when I discovered that Aury was here, and talking with Michael, and Michael was gracious enough to come up here with his sophisticated equipment more than mine. And it just went from there. And here we are today.
Wow. Yeah, I know in the write-up that I have for you guys, it said, and again, I had no idea that you just met, 8 months ago and got this started. But one of the things that Mike had written here was that Joe had the story, but no treasure map. And Mike was doing some research and actually was able to provide some of those details for you. So that's how you guys fit together with this, which is an awesome thing. And that's something that, you hear that it takes a village. It takes people working together sometimes to find us. Everybody, in so many times you hear like the old Dan Blankenship and Fred Nolan story where nobody wants to share. They didn't want to share. Oh, I got my ideas and you got your ideas, and we're going to feud if we try to. But you guys are working together, which I think is fascinating, and it combines your expertises together as well. So, take us a little bit into this story before we get to the actual, looking and the parts we saw on the show. Either one of you can start if you'd like, but tell us a little bit about Aury and what he was doing that created this treasure that he had that ended up being hidden and that you're looking for. Tell us a little bit about the story of Aury.
Do you want to do that, Mike, or do you want me?
I'll work on the treasure side of it.
Okay. Aury, obviously we know he was in South America, Panama, many places. He was a mercenary, per se, a freedom fighter. He made his way here to the East Coast. Why, we don't know. But he made his way here, as most do. Well, everything worked out well on Amelia Island until President Monroe bought the east coast of Florida. Aury was creating so many problems there for the Spanish, the Mexican, the British, the French. Pick one. He was just plundering ships, selling everything off, and making a lot of money. Monroe said, this ends now. They sent troops down. They arrested Aury. When they arrested him, they locked him up for 3 months, from September until December 24th. They let him loose and said, the only reason we didn't hang you is you never attacked a Union ship. He was smart that way. He knew. They said, leave now, we won't hang you. Well, he left. Now, the word that we have is he sailed on his ship, the Mexican Libre. They let him go with his ship.
The Mexican what?
On,
what was that again? The Mexican what?
The Mexican Libre was his ship.
Oh, that was okay. Okay.
He sailed around, came up to the West Coast, went up to Louisiana, and he picked up another ship. And we think that it was called the Successor.
Okay.
Can't prove it. And we also think that it was a ship on loan from Jean Lafitte, the Baratarian from New Orleans.
Now that man I have heard of before. Yep.
Well,
the very first Beyond Oak Island episode was about Jean Lafitte.
Yep.
Yeah, but it says nothing about Aury and him. And again, we cannot prove this through history. This is just things that we found in archival research. We also think, and well, we don't think this, we know. He ended up coming to the Spanish Well to refill his boats. We all know you can go 2 weeks without food. You can only go 3 or 4 days without water.
All right.
Everyone knew of the well's location. He came to the well to restock his boats, liked the area, fell in love with the area, and then ended up building 6 outbuildings on the east side of Hog Island.
Okay.
Now, Hog Island, if you look now on the charts, modern day, it's called Honeymoon Island.
Mm-hmm.
Honeymoon Island
I'm
is
somehow
one
amused by that.
It's in Dunedin, Florida. Well, that was Hog Island back then. The reason they called that, the Spanish let go a bunch of hogs on it, came back 3 years later so they'd have a food source.
Okay.
Plenty of snakes, lizards, everything for the hogs. Fresh water source they're good.
Mm-hmm.
He builds the 6 buildings. And he creates kind of an outpost.
Mm-hmm.
He makes friends with the Indians, with the fur trappers, the traders, and so on.
Right.
Everything was great. But President Monroe knew he came here. The other problem was this. Monroe was in a deal to buy the west coast of Florida from Spain.
Oh.
They only owned the east coast. They didn't own the west coast. I can go on about this, but
No.
Mike want to take over now on the treasure part of it. And if you want some more history of it, I'll be glad to give it to you. But there's a lot.
Sounds good. All right. So obviously through all of this, he must have gained obviously the wealth. Pardon me? Can't hear it? Should be working okay. Linda, can you hear me all right?
I can hear you.
So through all of this,
I can't hear you.
Okay. Everybody else can. I don't know if you're getting a little bit of a delay or what's happening there. Might be internet issue.
Can you hear me, Joe?
No,
Joe can't hear any of us.
Oh, okay. All right. We're going to continue on. So in that process of all of this, he obviously gained a lot of wealth. Now, was he in an issue where he was on the run? So tell us a little bit about the treasure side of it, Mike.
So I'm currently chasing my own pirate. So what had happened?
I know more about your pirate.
You want to know my pirate?
I know your pirate. I don't know this pirate.
Well, I was chasing we've been chasing Gasparilla, and I have a group of treasure hunters. We formed the Real Treasure Hunters, people who were passionate to treasure hunt. So anyhow, when Joe had reached out to me, I knew what had happened was a few months earlier, I had gone to the University of South Florida, and it was different authors that I was reading about that I wanted to check manuscripts, originals, that maybe there was some information that they might have not put in the books. So I come across a box that has 1,600 files of different treasures, shipwrecks throughout the United States.
Wow.
Every shell mound in the state of Florida, every Confederate fort in the state of Florida. So there was so many treasures involved in this that when he had called me, I was like, man, you know what? I might have the treasure map to your treasure. Wow. So once he gave me his information, I did my research and I started going through every single one of those files and got lucky enough that I find an article that had mentioned about Lewis Aury, but they had spelled it Curry with question marks at the end. Mm-hmm. When I saw that, it kind of, gave me a red flag saying, wait a minute, maybe they must spelled the name wrong, which they did. Because as I was starting to read further down, this was the pirate. It was the French pirate that he was telling me about. It was just the pronunciation of the last name was wrong. They must have heard it wrong, and they spelled it wrong, but that's why they put question marks. And it had the treasure map, where exactly it was located, that it was located by a Spanish well. We knew there were 2 Spanish wells, and we, went to the first one, and we had figured out that was not the one. And then we went to the one here on Enclo Key, which in that treasure map, it tells you it's on Enclo Key. Mm-hmm. So we knew we were onto something, and we just couldn't get permission to dig there by the county. So at that time, Joe had, he had gotten in contact with the state, the county. They kept denying him. Finally, Beyond Oak Island reached out to him.
Mm-hmm.
And he told me, he said, we were having a hard time. We need an archaeologist. With an archaeologist, as long as we follow the state guidelines,
Mm-hmm.
we can get in there. And when they came along, they got us an archaeologist. We got approved, and we were out to get this treasure. We're pretty excited, because that's what kind of makes this episode very, very interesting and very realistic, is because most treasures that people go after, you read it in books, you have a kind of a location, but not a precise location when you have a treasure map.
Right.
We just made it that more realistic, and the whole show was pretty amazing. Even up to when we met Marty, when he walked up to us, that's the first time we actually met him. So the show was pretty real. I've been on Travel Channel, I've been on Discovery Channel, and I've been on this show. This show is far more realistic than the other shows that I've been on. Mm-hmm. So I that was a really neat experience that I don't think that we would have got anywhere else.
Yeah, for sure. So the Spanish well, now that, and I wanted to ask real quick if Captain Joe, can you hear us yet, or were we able to work that out? Nope. No, he's probably still can't hear us. He's going to need to restart, and I don't know how to tell him that, but I think he's going to need to restart.
You can probably see it in the private chat.
Yeah. If we can tell him that real quick. All right, let's see if he sees that and he can check that out. Hopefully he can do that. But anyway, so the Spanish well, I know there was a little bit of, and I saw a video that you guys had done. And I don't know what time of the year it was, but it was a video that was out that Jan had shared with me. But there was a little bit of a discussion to find out exactly where the Spanish well was. Is that correct?
Well, Captain Joe's very fluent to that area, and there was only 2 wells in that area. And what we had done is, when we looked at the map, the one well was too far away to be able to carry, barrels of water to the ship.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So we kind of narrowed that out of the way. And this Spanish well was sitting right on high ground, right where, the map shows it to be,
Mm-hmm.
So it made more sense that it'd be here in Encloak than it would have been at the other location. But this location, the Spanish well, was used for many, many years, from the indigenous tribes to the Spaniards when they were here in this area. That was their main source of water.
All right. So, and I know that there was a little bit of at one point, I think there was a sign there, obviously, and I'm assuming, because we saw that on the show, there was a sign right there that showed, it talked about the Spanish well being right there. And when you guys went out there and you started metal detecting and everything, and we seen Matty was going around with the push rod, pushing it down into the sand, and going down deep and nothing, and then boom, he hits the top of it. That was the well. Was that the well right there?
That was probably the most exciting moment. Because when we were looking at the Spanish well, it's got a sign there and it's got, rocks around it, portraying that this is the Spanish well. But it really wasn't. When I ran my ground penetrating radar over it, they didn't show no cavity there. So I was like, this ain't no well. There's no well here. So when we actually were metal detecting and we hit it, it was pretty exciting, because even the county, let alone the state, really did not know where it was. Okay. And that concrete thing that we found is actually a marker, and which was probably put there by a university, where I'd locate, or even the state could have placed it there, just so it signifies that that's the Spanish well.
Yeah, right.
That was pretty exciting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, to find it, because that kind of, now, once you know that is the Spanish well, or the location of it, now you can start to use that information to find out more of the story, or where the rest of it is. Now, and I remember them on the show, and I may even have a picture of this. And folks, I'm not going to show all the pictures that I normally would, because we have guests here. We don't need to. But there was I remember seeing the circle, and you guys were doing like a radius around that circle of about 18 feet or something. And there was like separate separate caches of, talk about that a little bit.
Well, so when we knew that that was an original Spanish well and we had found the well, that gave us our starting point. And in the tail, or I'm sorry, in the treasure map, it actually states that there's 11 caches surrounding the well that were 10 feet apart. So we did our calculations about, 10 feet apart and what the radius would be, and it came down to 18 feet. So when we started metal detecting it, we actually hit all 11 caches in a circle 10 feet apart within the 18-foot radius. It was pretty amazing. So we know there's something there. Now, because of the fact that it's my GPR goes 30 feet deep, and these were sitting at about 10 feet. When I scanned it, it didn't show a big signal being there. But I imagine once we dug deeper and we got closer, the signal would have got bigger and bigger. It's just that it was so deep that the signal's not coming out that strong for me.
Right. Joe, were you able to get the sound back?
I'm back. Can you see me?
Yes. Yeah. All good. All right.
Can you hear us?
Technology at its best. Yeah.
Awesome.
No, I'm back now. So.
Okay, good.
Okay. What did I miss? What did I miss?
Well, we were just talking about, of course, finding the Spanish well, which then once you know where the well is, now you've got a starting point. And so we were just talking about that starting point and then talking about the radius and the separate caches around there, I guess. And how did you find out about that information about there being separate caches all in that area? Where did that come from?
Well, actually, Mike found that in an article from USF or University of Miami, somewhere down south, right, Mike?
Yes.
And it all fit because I had found a previous story about that, saying that 6 trusted men came up and blah, 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 and they buried the stuff within plain view. And the whole reason why they buried that monies there was because they knew that the Union Army, who, by the way, was led by Andrew Jackson, who went on to be president, came down from Georgia under President Monroe's orders to do 2 things. One, to find a stronghold in the area with a good food source and a water source so they could build a fort. The second was to hang Aury because they knew he was here.
Yep.
Well, of course, Aury got warning and said it's time to go. And but what we think, Mike and I do, is this. The reason we think the story is more than true, because you can make carvings on trees with an axe. Mark where you hid something. Aury was smarter than that. He said, if a hurricane comes, the trees will be gone.
Exactly.
Let's hide everything around the well. Even though there's a lot of people there, if we go there at night, dig those holes, and bury everything, cover it back up, and we leave, we can come back in a year or 2 when things cool down and we're not being chased or wanted, and dig it back up. The well will be there.
Yeah.
Like Mike told us many times, the trees are no guarantee. Storm could come in and blow them out, hurricane could, but the well will still be there.
Yep.
So it all makes sense. Hiding it in plain view. And Mike will go on to tell you, when I'm done here, how he figured out where that circumference was. Go ahead, Mike.
Well, we were talking about it, that we knew that Spanish well, because there was no cavity there, that it wasn't actually a Spanish well, and that we targeted an actual well when we did find it. That became the starting point to the circle of the 11 caches. And knowing that they were 10 feet apart gave us a better idea too. If we wouldn't have known that they were 10 feet apart, so it actually said it was 10 feet apart. So it just gave us a better idea how far away from the Spanish well it would be.
That's interesting.
Not to mention this. If
Go
you're
ahead.
going to hide something, hide it in plain view, but be sneaky about it.
Right.
And this man was smart. This man was A, educated, B, could read. And in those days, if you had, and a master mariner, if you had those skills, you were way above everyone else of your time. You were respected, and you were You were just on a level of what other people weren't. And this man knew his trade, he knew his craft, and he was good at it.
What Jan's asking a question here. What do you know what year the treasure was buried roughly? About what time frame?
What we think was somewhere in January, February of 1818.
Okay.
Now, there's another interesting fact that leads us to that most people don't know. And this is something that was not on the TV show, but it's a very delicate subject. There was a corsair, and it was called the Successor.
Mm-hmm.
And it was captained by a man named Gattuso. He was a Mexican. Now, here's the bad news. It was a slave trader ship. It had 95 slaves on it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Aury, on his two boats, excuse me, I apologize, the Isabelita. I was wrong, not the Successor. Gattuso's boat was the Isabelita, okay? Aury took the ship without a fight. They surrendered the ship. It was so heavy in the water. They were outgunned, outmanned. They were tired, hungry, didn't have water. They were on their way to the well. Aury saw this and took the ship without a fight.
Wow.
Told the captain, we'll let you go if you give us the ship. Well, he took it.
Yep.
Guess what? He sold that ship and those people from the Caribbean and Africa for $65,000 in gold and silver coins.
Wow.
That's over $100 million in today's money. Not only that, he was so brazen, he gave a receipt to a man by the name of Bowen that he sold the ship and the people on it too, with his name on it.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. And by the way, this happened right off of Anclote Key, which is no more than a half of a mile out from where the well is. The water's deep enough, you could bring a 100-foot ship in there and anchor it, and all this deal went down there. Ask me how we know this.
Yes, please.
Well,
I'm going to show this map. It's an old one, but this was shown on the TV show. Is this the area you're talking about right in here?
yeah, that's an early
Right.
map.
Yep.
This actually is Anclote Key, and this one to the south, that's actually called Dutchman Key.
Okay.
The one right above CCO Dell, this is a very, very early map. I don't know where they got that from, but actually on the French maps in the late 1700s,
mm-hmm.
Anclote Key was called Kedge Key by the French.
Oh, okay.
Because you had to kedge your boat in there if you wanted to get near it. Kedging was a very popular thing back then. It
Tell
involved
us a little bit about that. What does that mean exactly?
What you would do is this: if you have a 100-foot bark,
mm-hmm.
you would launch a couple of boats out front with anchors. The boat would row out with a line from the boat. They'd throw the anchor.
Mm-hmm.
Then they'd row back to the boat, and the people on the boat would pull the anchor line. And that's how they got that big boat into where they needed to go. It was called kedging. That's why the French called it Kedge Key, because they had to do that to get in, which actually is part of the name of Anclote, but that's a story for another day.
Okay.
The most important thing is this. The deal was made. And after that deal was made, the ship got confiscated. It sailed up towards Carolinas, got confiscated.
Mm-hmm.
All the slaves got unloaded and went to Georgia. The Georgia governor, his name was McLeish or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
McEwen McLeish. He was crooked as the day is long. He took a bunch of them and sold them off before anything happened.
Oh, really?
Well, Oh yeah. Well, Bowen, the guy that bought and paid for this stuff, sued the state of Georgia and said, I want my people back. President Monroe got involved and said, no, you bought those people and that ship illegally from a privateer. He says, yeah, here's my receipt from Aury. They said he's a privateer. You bought him illegally. He said, no, I did not. He said, I bought this ship and those 95 people in view of Anclote Key. That's on the west coast of Florida. Right. Guess what? Spain owned it. Monroe didn't buy it yet.
Uh-huh.
Well, the way that it turned out, it all went through the court system, believe it or not.
Wow.
Madruzo got the ship back, which got refitted in South Carolina. And Bowen ended up getting $38,000 of his money back.
Oh, wow.
The poor people that were on that boat from the Caribbean and Africa, the old ones went on the Trail of Tears out west, Oklahoma, and the young ones went to the plantations in the South. And no one really knows that whole story of how that part of the treasure and why it was buried right by the Spanish well.
Right. Well, that gave them that legal right, because if they don't, it was out of their jurisdiction. If the Spanish still owned the west coast of Florida, then yeah, it's out of their. They don't have any right to say any transaction.
They recognized it and said, "Yeah, we don't own it yet." Monroe did not make the deal with Spain. Spain wanted to get rid of the rest of Florida because every time one of their ships sailed on the west coast, it got robbed, sank. Nothing made it back. Right. It could make it there, but it never made it back because you got Lafitte, you got Aury, you got Black Bart, you've got Juan Gomez, you've got, I mean, just the list went on and on of the people that it was easy pickings. And nobody was coming to the rescue. I mean, Spain was too far away. You saw a Spanish ship.
Oh, yeah.
Might have been 1, 2. They were mostly alone. They had to fend for themselves. They were hungry. They were tired. They were thirsty. They might not have known where to get water at the well or Wall Springs. Who knows? They might not have known.
Yep. Wow. So that gave that opportunity then for him to, now he had all this money, and knowing that they were going to come looking for him, he had to do something with it. And of course, and it was a good point that I think it was Jan brought up, was talking about the water table. Now we know, and I'm assuming this was worldwide, but we know that the water levels were lower many years ago. So with the well of where it was, or is where you found it, it would have been actually probably a little bit on even higher ground back then. But you had mentioned they did a lot of dredging right out there in that area of the water, right off where the well was, correct? Because that's all probably been changed over the years.
In the 50s, they dredged that river out. But you got to understand this. You're going back 204 years ago. Like Michael said, he agreed with me. That river could have been 200 yards to the west.
Yep.
It could have been far away. And the ground that we originally penetrated, that 2 feet, was sand that was put there in 1970s. That's when that beach was built. So the water table could have been a lot lower than what it is right now.
Right. Yep. But that still would have been the closest well. What's that?
I didn't hear you say it.
I said that, but that still would have been the best place for that well, because you talked about, Mike mentioned the other well was too far away to be trudging water all the way back to a ship.
Problems with the other well. There's problems with the other well.
Okay.
Wall Springs is probably 1/8 of a mile inland. Now, you are not going to take a wooden barrel off of a boat, fill it up with maybe 60 gallons of water, with no two-wheel dolly or anything of the sorts, or a wagon or anything, and try and roll this thing 1/8 of a mile to get it to the beach to load it in a boat.
Yeah, it'd be about 400 pounds.
It makes no sense.
No,
Now,
you're right.
the well, you can get 100-foot bark pretty close in that inlet channel, and you can launch the boats and roll a little bit on land,
Yep.
fill it up with water, roll it back to the boat, get it in the boat, or tow it behind the boat with a rope, and
Yep.
just go back up to the 100-foot vessel.
Exactly right.
Yesterday
So-
we found another spring.
I've got a picture here of the of this area. Now this is where you guys were working right up here in this. I see an area that's roped off where you guys were working. Basically, this is where the Spanish well was found, right in this area here.
Yes.
Close. It was probably about 50 feet from the shoreline,
Okay.
right by that tree.
Today's shoreline. Yep. Okay.
Actually, go to your left a little bit.
Oh, okay. Over here.
Go to your left a little bit. Where's your cursor? What? Stop. No, right there. Stop. Down. Down. Go to the right. Yep. Now straight up. Right around in there is where the well actually sits.
Okay.
So it's in that clump of trees.
Yes, it is. Now, here's another interesting thing. And Michael, you don't know this. Pat and I went 2 days ago and hunted that whole beach
Yesterday.
from north to south. Remember that creek, Mike, where the bridge is?
Yeah,
You go to that restaurant over there.
right.
We went at a mean low tide. I mean, the tide was out the most I've ever seen it.
We walked in muck.
We literally walked in muck. Guess
Wow.
what? There's another spring over there.
Yes, there is.
And there was fresh water coming out of the ground in that little creek and just dribbling down.
Oh, wow.
Yep. There was no water. Remember that where that bridge was? There was no water in there at all. And
It
then
was full of water.
and to the actual east a little bit where there was a tidal pool,
South.
there was water coming up, bubbling up, and dribbling in the sand
Down to the beach.
down to the beach.
So what does that
Now,
tell us?
well,
What does that help
but it
give
is
you?
a freshwater spring.
But it's a spring.
Yeah. So what does that tell us? Does that give you an extra clue to the story, or?
No, it really doesn't, because we don't know if
But it could.
we don't know if that was there or not back then. There's no way to tell.
Right.
But the interesting thing about it is there's another water source. Now, the well is the well. Everyone went there.
Yep.
It's been there 400 years. Was that spring there? Who knows? We found it by accident.
Yeah.
And we checked all up in there for an hour and found nothing.
Now this particular well, Linda, do you want to say something?
Well, I was just curious, is there any possibility that this treasure cache is buried around that spring?
No, not at all. Not
Okay.
at all. No way. No way. It isn't like a big hole in the ground that there's water bubbling up and, a big spring like what you're
Trickle.
thinking. It's just a
Okay.
little trickle. But yet
Okay.
it was there. We looked at that sand and said, that's fresh water. Where's that coming from? Now, most times of day at a middle tide, high tide, unless it's a low tide, it's brackish. There's water in there.
Okay.
We just happened to hit it at the right time. It's the only reason we, and immediately we went off with the detectors in there. Everywhere we could, we didn't find any hits at all.
Nothing.
Okay.
Okay.
Now here at the well, I've got a picture, and then you guys were you mentioned earlier you needed an archaeologist and somebody who was officially a doctor of archaeology, and of course you got a hold of our good friend Dr. Aaron Taylor, and I guess that Prometheus or the Oak Island guys helped you out with that, I'm assuming. So, and Aaron was going to actually be here tonight, but something came up for him, and he was not able to do that. So, but he's been on our show before. We really like Aaron. But here he is. He's down here and he's clearing this area off. So now with him there, you were able to obtain the permits that you needed and go in, and with him kind of overseeing what you're doing, you were able to go in and start actually searching. And finding the well was key. And you said that well was covered over with a concrete plate or something. It's because I guess a child fell into it or something like that years ago.
Yeah, 1947, 48, young child fell into it. It had boards on it.
Okay.
And believe it or not, yeah, and the kid fell in it and he didn't drown. They got him out. And then
That's good. Yeah.
they cemented it up, and and since then I'm sure what you're looking at, that picture there with Dr. Aaron, I'm sure they cemented it up more than once since 1947. Michael found it with his GPR because of the metal in it, and it was like, well, this has got to be it. And which, as you see how big it is there, and that's not even the full scale of it, it's bigger than that. It proves that we're positive that's what it was there.
Right. Yeah, and that's where he found that lid there. So then you started working this area. Now, did you use the well? Is the well the center of this circle?
That's Michael's expertise. Take that from there, Mike.
Yeah, once we had the location of the well, because it said there was 11 caches surrounding the well that were 10 feet apart. We just needed a center point, and then once we got the center point, we were able to find the ones around it.
Okay, and then you went out, and once you got this area, this perimeter set up, you went around with the metal detector. I was a little bit, I mean, watching the episode, I was a little bit taken back by, did you actually got hits around this area with the metal detector, right, that you were using?
Correct. And all of the ones that we got hits on were at least 8 to 10 feet deep. And we knew that going that deep, we're definitely going to hit water. So Marty's suggestion was to try and find something that was not as deep, to try to avoid the water, and at the end, we still hit water regardless.
Yeah. Yep. This was a look, and I was going to flip this around.
That's a GPR, by the way. Mike, tell them what it is.
This was along the circle, and it was by the tree. And what I did is I do a scan. And what the scan does is it shows me how big the item is that's underneath the ground, which it also shows the different types of metals the possibilities of what it could be.
Mm-hmm.
And there was something small. There was something a little bit small next to it. I don't know what that was, but you could see how big it was, and that's actually a pretty big object.
Wow! And how big is this square in real, time? And how big would this square be?
I did not take the measurement on it, but from previous experience, I would say that's probably something that might be 2x2 or 2x4.
That's what I was wondering. So it's pretty precise. I mean, it's a pretty small area that you found this. And this hit, what is this hit indicating to you? Because they kind of breezed over it on the show, but you got this hit right here, this bigger one. And you got the different colors, red, and I'm assuming, does that mean the depth of it? Is that what the red and the yellow and the blue?
It's how big it is. It's what happens is, you'll see like the one beside it's small, and then it goes to yellow, and then it goes to red.
Right.
And it also kind of gives me a depth perception of how deep it is. Now, what I normally would do is I would measure from right to left with the metal detector, and then up and down. And those measurements, I would calculate that in my GPR, and it'll actually tell me the size of it. I just didn't happen to do it because we decided to go ahead and start digging right away because the object was big enough to dig.
Yeah. Yep. Now, did it tell you what it was? What kind of material? What non-ferrous, ferrous, or
it showed gold. It showed gold.
Wow.
We had a bunch of them show gold.
Yeah. There you were. You guys were working around this tree. And then there was a hit that you found on it right there. You were working around the tree, and there's, of course, Dr. Taylor. And of course, you started digging, and you're going to run into all these roots. But at one point you got to an area where you were convinced, and I remember Captain Joe, you were talking about the fact that as you were digging deeper and deeper, your indication was that whatever it was picking up the hit, it was actually more underneath the tree, right?
Well, that's Michael's department, but yeah, you're right.
Well, when I originally scanned it, it showed between 6 to 8 feet.
Mhm.
Now, what happens is the signal is not going to show as big, but once the closer you get to it, the signal tends to expand and get bigger because the closer you get to it. And at this point right here, I was still getting the signal, which I was getting it closer to the tree, like Joe said.
Right.
So when Joe put his metal detector on there, which is a little bit smaller,
Mhm.
he went on the side of it and he pretty much narrowed it down to being right underneath that tree. I was picking it up regardless. That thing has a pretty big span on it, whether it's deep and wide. So, I mean, there's definitely something there. I mean, there's something there. We just didn't get to it.
Yeah, and I'm
By
glad.
the way, we tried that's $1 million tree.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. I mean, I would have, obviously you're thinking, boy, what's worth more? But then if you take the tree out,
Well, Jeff, and Jeff, the other thing too is that we were not allowed to use any heavy duty machinery, any kind of equipment. We had to use hand tools.
right.
So that kind of set us back a little bit.
Oh, absolutely.
Now there's an update. I don't know. I'll let Joe give you the update. But it's when you use hand tools only, it's difficult. It's very difficult.
Oh, yeah.
We probably could have got a pump. We would have had to got a big pump, not just a regular sludge pump, because it would keep, the deeper you go, the more it's going to start filling in faster. So we were a little bit over our heads. We didn't think that it was going to be that deep, but it ended up being pretty deep.
Yep. Well, that's just one of the spots. So then you ended up having to move on. And I think it was the next day when you guys went back out, or at least for TV time, it was the next day that you went back out to have another look at one of the other spots, I guess. And let's see. There was a couple of things that were found, like the nail. There was a couple of nails that were found. And then there was a piece of that. And did he call it chert? I think Aaron Taylor called it chert.
Well,
Yeah.
we knew through Joe, through the stories he was reading, there was indigenous tribes there along with the Spaniards. So we knew we were going to come across some artifacts, which that seems to be like an arrowhead right there is what we found. And we found other artifacts that they actually didn't show in the show, but we knew we were onto something. We were in the right era. We were right in the right area because that area was very fluented by the Spaniards, let alone Aury and the tribes. So we found all kinds of stuff, and then I guarantee you there's a lot more stuff there. That place is full of it. And a little bit further down, there's an actual Indian shell mound, not even maybe 100 yards away. So
Wow.
this area was very fluented during that time.
So
We
did
also
you
found
find
some native
other things while you were digging in that area with the team from Oak Island?
A nail?
Did you find more than the chert and the nail?
Yes,
There's actually ceramic pieces that we found, like pottery.
Oh, wow.
That was out there that we actually were able to piece it together.
Oh,
But
wow.
another thing that's really, really interesting, which I don't know if anybody caught on, was when we found the first nail, it was actually sitting on the topsoil.
Right.
The second one was deep where it needed to be.
Yeah.
What that almost tells me is that the hole was already pre-dug once before.
Ah, yeah. Wow.
So they probably maybe something they could have buried something there when they put the soil back in that now fell on the top soil instead of the bottom soil.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
I mean, it's possibility.
It
Right.
is.
Right.
So was Aaron able to give you any kind of date on anything else that you found there? Like the pottery?
it was all that era.
Was it?
Yes, it was late 1700s, early 1800s. And again, our era was 1812, 1815. He determined that those items were 1750 to 20.
Awesome.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, there's another picture I had, and that puts you in the right date range, so you know that's good. Here's another picture. There was that point where, and you look at all your faces during this scene here, where Aaron's on the phone. He's got, you guys found a possible artifact, and he had to get on the phone to get permission to continue what you were doing, and everybody's on pins and needles while this is happening. And of course, the word has been given to go ahead and continue. But then after you do, and these hits, I mean, you're finding these hits. Now you're pulling up little pieces. Like this is the one that was actually found in the deeper soil, which means it was not backfill or anything like that, or topsoil, like you called it, which puts you in the right era. I guess I got a couple shots of that. But so then you run into the water issue. And that's, all stop at that point, but yet you're so close. And like you said, now you can't go down any deeper. I guess Aaron made it sound like once you hit water, you got to stop. Now, he mentioned that a couple times on the show. So that was the end of it right there. You had all your hits in this circle, going around in this circle. Some of them are so deep, you're going to hit water on every single one of them. So you tried one that was a little bit closer to the surface. You ended up hitting water on that one as well. And yet, you're getting hits of gold with your metal detector. I mean, that's got to be, I can't imagine the frustration going through you guys at that point, because you're this close. You're within a few feet.
Jeff, I scanned it twice, and twice I got the same exact results of the locations where you were.
It's like the movie Apollo 13. Hey, look at that. I can see that moon right there.
Mm-hmm.
But I might as well be a million miles away because I'm not going to land on it. And I knew when we hit that water, I said, it might as well be 100 feet down. We're not going to get to it today. Now, we will another day, which we'll go into.
Okay, and please, let's go ahead, Linda. You can say something.
That's okay. One of our members asked us to ask you, is there a way, on Oak Island, they talk about putting a cofferdam in, on a big scale, or digging a large hole with freezing, or different ways to get around that water issue. Is there a way to do that on a very tiny scale?
Yes, there is.
Okay.
They are called well points.
Yes.
Don't forget, we were under such a tight schedule with time constraints. There was no time to put all this together. When they say go, it's go, go, go.
Right.
Now, we love the History Channel. We have nothing but great things to say about those folks. They are just super to work with.
Yep.
The problem was we didn't have enough time. Time is money. They brought all these people from the West Coast to Florida, and we needed to get this done. What we'll do now is we'll put 8, maybe 10 well points down with a pump with a 4-inch hose. And we'll do that 24 hours before we decide to dig. So what that's going to do, they go down 10 feet and they're pumping that water out into the river. Otherwise, even with a backhoe, you can't dig a 10-foot hole, or it's just a mush and slurry.
Right.
Another question that we had was, how long was Aaron Taylor there before you started filming? Was he just there for a day or two?
No, he was there the whole time. Aaron was there the whole 4.5 days.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did he stay longer?
No.
Or are you allowed to say that?
No, to my knowledge, no. That's no big deal. He left when everybody else did, but it's all about time.
Right.
Time, you only have a limited amount of time to get things done. And again, Michael and I have learned so much just through this journey. The next journey, and there will be one, whether the History Channel comes back with us or not, it will still happen. We already I can say this because we're free to do it. Michael and I have permission to bring heavy equipment in there.
Oh, good. I was
But
going to ask
again,
what's the next step. Yeah. Go ahead.
that
Sorry.
is the next step, which is in the planning stages right now.
Mm-hmm.
And again, it's a logistical nightmare. We have 3 trades that have to get in there, and we have to line everybody up in order to do it. And then, of course, I'm retired. Mike's not, so he has to get the time off to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And we are a slave to the tides.
Yep.
We not only, after all this, have to get everybody ready, and we have to stagger our days so the tide is low early in the morning, because we don't want to get started doing this at noon.
You're right. Yeah. And when you got all the TV crews and people showing up, that's, you know, you get so many delays and all this kind of stuff. I can only imagine,
Absolutely.
you know,
Takes
how
a long
frustrating.
time to do one shot. Yeah.
Yeah. I can't
And I
imagine.
will tell you this. I will tell you this, and tell anyone that has watched our show. We love the History Channel. They've been great to us. But whether they come back or not, we will be back, and it is in the planning stages. And we're hoping that they decide to come back. And there's things we can't talk about right now, as you well know. But I can tell you this: it is not the end for the real treasure hunters.
Good. That's what I wanted to actually hear you say, because so many times, you know, these guys do this. They did the same thing with Poverty Island. You know, we just talked, they had a couple of different episodes on Poverty Island looking up there. And when we saw the first episode happen in season 1, I think it was, I knew there was going to be more to this story. And I'm thinking, oh, you guys got to go back out there. We need more. Let me just put this to you both, Mike and Captain Joe. If the History Channel doesn't, please get a hold of me, because we will.
I was going to say, we would love to have you guys on again to
Oh,
find
man.
out what happens next.
Yep.
Whether you're ever on Beyond Oak Island, the History Channel, the Travel Channel, Discovery, whatever, we would love to know what you find.
Yes.
Well, I think, do you know Michael's background? I am blessed to be with a guy that has been on 3 different networks already. This
Right.
is my first. If it wasn't for this
watched
man right
all
here,
of those
I wouldn't
shows.
even know how to act right now. He's like my big brother that's shorter than me that I just met, you know.
Well, I tell you what,
Thank you,
yeah. If they don't want to do it, I'll even come down. I'll give you one further on this. I'll come down there with my camera gear. I'll grab somehow or another. We'll get Linda down there, and we'll come down there and I'll film it for you. I know you got your own people, but I would come down there and film it for you and help you out in this process. And I don't want nothing to do with, it's your treasure, it's your find, and all that. I'll help you cover it, and then come on the show and we'll talk about it. So I just put that to you right now. So I want
Thank you so much.
I want to know, because this, you guys, like you just said, you guys were that close to finding this.
Yeah.
And then you had to stop. And I'm like, no, we need more on this. It's there. You were that close. I have to know. And John is saying, yeah, he's serious. And I am. I'm serious about it. I mean, I'll drive down there and help you guys, because I want to know. And so does everyone else that's watching the show now. We want to know the next chapter of the story.
Well, it doesn't end here, and Michael will attest to that.
Mm-hmm.
It only moves forward. What?
So-
How did they say on the show? Today is the day.
Today is
Well,
the day. Yeah.
Our day is coming. It's
Yep.
just what day.
Yeah. Do you have any idea when all this is maybe going to happen, that you can get back out there and continue?
All I can tell you is soon.
Good. That's great. That is awesome news. It truly is. This is one of those stories, and you even talked about John Lafitte in this. Whether or not that portion of it is true or not, I mean, there's so much more to be discovered, not only about Aury and Jacques Lafitte and many of these other privateers that were working with the union or with the government of the times or whatever, with the Spanish and whatnot. But there's so many different stories of these pirate or privateers that may be interconnected with each other in some ways. But
Well, there were several dozen pirates that hung
Yes.
out around
Well, we
Florida.
actually-
I mean, we had a place at Fort Myers and Sanibel and Captiva, and have been to Gasparilla and have been to Tampa, and
Okay, Mike,
I
here
love
we go.
that stuff.
Well,
You're talking
well,
to
we
the
believe
expert.
that there's a tie
Right here
with
at this
Aury
screen.
and Gasparilla. We believe that there's a tie there.
Really?
Don't
Yeah.
get him started. He is an absolute.
That's all right. Go ahead.
expert,
Go
and
ahead,
he will
please.
want- And you really have to hear some of this. Here, give
Okay,
him a
please.
quick synopsis, Mike.
All right.
Well, 2 weeks after the show, I went to Yusepa Island. I don't know if you know where Yusepa Island is. It's north of Sanibel, north of Captiva.
Mhm.
And I went out there with my GPR. We had heard a story about a treasure being out there. And as I'm metal detecting, I actually find a Calusa Indian bone tool,
Really?
which would look like a knife. It was hand carved. I thought it was a piece of wood. Ends up being an artifact, which I ended up giving it to the museum there at Yusepa. So if you ever go there, you see that bone tool from me.
Wow.
Been there.
And as I'm still, now the water receded back probably about 100 feet. So it was low tide. And as I'm walking, I hit something that's about 7 feet long, 3 feet wide. That's maybe a foot underneath the sand. So, and we're looking to go back to that. But I have, 7 or 8 different treasure maps to Gasparilla that we're currently chasing, whether it's the jewelry vault, the treasure trove, the shipwreck, it goes on and on and on. So I'm still, to this day, it's been 7 years, and I'm still chasing this treasure, and I'm getting closer and closer, but it just takes time. I have to make sure everybody's available for that day. And one thing at a time, we eventually get there. It's persistence and perseverance.
Right.
You made a remark about John Lafitte. Well, the reason we know that Aury did actually know and work with John Lafitte is that Corsair, the successor, was one of John Lafitte, the Baratarian's boats out of New Orleans
There you go.
that came here to Anclote Key.
Wow. Yep.
Because the Mexico Libre was Aury's boat. He went and picked up the successor in New Orleans before he came here on lease with the intent, whatever he plunders, he has to give a piece of the pie to the Baratarian John Lafitte. And John Lafitte ran New Orleans back then. He was the mayor. He was the man in that area.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
Joe, we forgot to mention the cannons.
Yeah. Here's another interesting part of this.
All right.
We found writings in not one, but 2 different places that, you got to understand. I mean, on the show, they said $500 billion. Well, I don't believe that. I'm willing to bet maybe in today's money, over $3-4 million.
Right.
Well, I mean, $65,000 was over $140 million today. And he got that in one shot.
Wow.
Imagine what he picked up before that. Well, he hid coins, gold, silver, some jewels, different things, in 3 8-inch cannons. Now, I don't know how long an 8-incher is. What do you think? Maybe 6, 8 feet, 10 feet?
Probably
An
8 to
8-inch
10.
ball, that's a big cannon.
Yeah.
I know it weighed over 850 pounds.
Oof.
He pushed 3 of them overboard somewhere, and we have 2 different conflicting stories. One said he did it off of the northwest end of Hog Island, which is Honeymoon Island
Mm-hmm.
today. Well, me being a captain and this being in my backyard, I've been there more times than most in 34 years.
Mm-hmm.
There isn't enough water near that island to get 100-foot bark in there. But I'll tell you where there is, Anclote Island. You could be 200 yards offshore and that water be 25 feet deep.
Wow.
Well, I was going to push cannons overboard, and after I cemented them up, that's where I would do it. And that is another journey that we are going to look for. And again, we're hoping that the History Channel comes back to back us up on that.
Wow. You got a lifetime's worth of work to do. Oh my
Mike
goodness.
and I have a lifetime of studying already.
Oh my, yeah, and that's the thing is that the research that must be done to work yourself through all of that. That's the key too. That takes so much time to go through that. And that, I was thinking when we were talking about the Jean Lafitte, when like Linda had mentioned, that was on the very first episode of Beyond Oak Island, and it happened to be with our friend Christian Roper. Christian's been on this show several times. I communicate with him once or twice a week. He was the guy who was researching Jean Lafitte. And I'm going to ask him about this when we get done tonight. I'm going to send him a message and see, because this is the first I heard about that possible connection between the two. And I'm going to see what he may know about that, because he was researching Jean Lafitte. So interesting. There may be more to come. Maybe he has no connection with that, or he knows about no connection at all. But then again, he might have something that might help you in this whole thing. So, yeah, I'm going to be.
Little thing helps.
Yeah. Wow.
Any little thing.
I tell you what, this is a fascinating story. And, and that's, you get those. And I said that, kind of was alluding to this before, but you get these times where you see these guys are out looking for something like the Poverty Island or one of these other stories. They look and they look and they look and they find little pieces, little clues here and there, but nothing really tangible, nothing that you can hang your hat on. It's more, I have to go back out and look some more. But in your case, in this particular case, you've got the hits. You've recorded those hits on your detector, and you found the well, and you found the hits all around the well like you were supposed to find. It's just a matter of getting to it. So that makes this one so much different than the other stories. I mean, I don't know. What do you think, Linda? I mean, that's incredible.
It really, yeah. I just,
I just can't imagine, and the fact that you have to stop and now you got to go through a whole process to get, different equipment out there and do something different. It's just got to be eating you up inside again.
What show does that remind you of, huh?
right.
Gotta stop and get different equipment.
Gotta get more equipment.
Guys, right?
Gotta come at it from a different direction.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that show's going to be starting in about 3 weeks.
3 weeks.
Right. Yeah, I think November 15th or something
November
is the
15th.
first
That's when it's
episode.
going to start.
Yeah, I mean,
Wow.
we're kind of in that genre right now where it's like, oh, we know about that. We've seen it on TV. Guess what? We're doing the same thing.
Yep. Wow. I tell you what, guys, this has been fascinating, and I really can't thank you enough for coming on here. And I really am, like John said there, I'm totally serious. I really do hope that that History Channel works with you, and that you get to take this, and the whole world gets to see the next chapter in this story of you guys looking for this. And hopefully
Absolutely.
successfully find this and bring up something, because not only is it treasure, yes, which is really cool, but it's also the story, the history behind it all, which is, I think, the most, treasure's great. Don't get me wrong. Gold is finding gold coins and all
Gold
that.
is good.
Yeah, it's always good, but it's that story, the history behind all of this, that you're going to be able to tie all these things together and start proving points of these stories. And that's part of it that I'm really interested in as well. If I hope they'd work with you on this, and if they don't, like I said, I would love
Let us know.
to let us know. If you would let us know, and we will bring you back on the show, like I said, or if I need to, I got the fifth wheel right outside and it's ready to go. All I got to do is back the truck in, clink, and I'm heading south, dude. So
Let us put a plug in for Mike's webpage.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Mike's webpage.
TheRealTreasureHunters.com or Real Treasure Hunters.
The Real Treasure
Hunters.com. I have been all through it. It's a great website. Like I said, I'm a big fan of Gaspar. But I also want to point out to everybody that if you're interested in finding out more about that, Mike was on Expedition Unknown in season 7, episode 6 with Josh Gates on Discovery, right?
Yes.
Yeah, and then he was on the Travel Channel on Code of the Wild in the first season, episode 7. And I went back and rewatched both of those this week. I thought, oh, I know who that is now.
Yeah, I just wrote those down because I want to see those as well.
Yeah,
And
they're
folks,
they're fun.
Yeah, and folks, for those of you watching here today, the link to the real treasure hunters is in the description of the show below. You can go check that out. There's also a YouTube video, and I hope you don't mind me linking that. That's one of the ones that you had sent over to Jan. I think Captain Joe or Mike. Which one of you guys sent that over? But it's a video that was taken where actually, Joe, you're sitting down on a area, a bench over there, and you're talking about the history of all of this. And I have that. Is that okay for me?
25 minutes, and
Absolutely.
it's a really good lead up to this.
Yes, it is. So if you want to, folks, if you want to check out that, you should check it out. It's in the link in the description below. It's linked there, and so is the realtreasurehunters.com is linked in there. Just click on that, take you right there. And I'm going to go find these 2 episodes, and I'll probably see if I can figure out a way to get them linked in there. I'll put them in there as well, so you can check that out. This is a fascinating story, Captain Joe and Mike, I tell you. And I really, like I said, I really hope that you get to take this, that the world gets to see the next chapter of this. Hopefully they'll work with you on it. But knowing that it's going to be happening soon is even better. So I wish you all the luck in the world to get out there and get this stuff and find these caches that are out there. This is great stuff. I can't thank you enough for coming on today. So we're going to go ahead and wrap it up. We're about an hour and a half. We've been talking about this, and I tell you, it's been fascinating. Today's the day, right?
Today's the day. Just remember, the real treasure hunters.
The real treasure hunters, absolutely. And the ones that are going to find something. They're going to find something. All right. Okay. Well, thank you guys so very much for being with us today. And Linda, thank you so much for co-hosting. I appreciate it.
You're very welcome. Thanks,
Thank
guys.
you.
Thank you.
Today, thank you, folks, for being here with us today. And we're going to be doing another episode of Beyond Oak Island next Thursday, of course. And I think that one takes us back to the Etosha, right?
Right. We're back at the Etosha.
Okay. So that one's had a couple. So we're going to be working on that one and getting ready for that. So, folks, again, thank you so much for being with us here tonight. We're going to wrap it up, and we'll catch you next time right here on the Curse of Oak Island and Beyond live stream and J Free 906. Good night,
Hey,
everyone.
Sunday.
Oh,
Sunday.
What's that?
Sunday, we have a Halloween show.
That's right. I forgot to mention that. Thank you. I need you so much to remind me of these things.
No.
Yes, we are having a Halloween special Sunday night at 7 o'clock. John Edwards, Jake Roberts, Alessandra Nadovari, myself. Oh my gosh. I put a thing.
Tim McQuiston, Court Lindahl. Yeah.
And James is going to be talking about his new book that just got released. It's about skinwalkers.
Right.
And he's going to be talking about that. We're going to be showing some little excerpts of it and talking about that book. So you're going to want to be here Sunday night, 7 o'clock for that. So, all right, that's it. Now we're going to wrap it up. Thanks.
Now we can wrap it up.
Yeah, we'll catch you next time. All right, bye-bye now.
Bye.
Bye-bye.